Hello, Art. So today we'll be interviewing about the Vietnam War and your experience in the war and how your memories were formed during the war and how the war has impacted you in your life. So first of all, could you give me a little bit of background information about yourself, where you were born, and your general family history?
I was born in New York City. Actually, grew up in Brooklyn, and I went to New York City public schools through going to college, or right before college, and then I went to Gettysburg College, kind of out in the middle of farmland. A big change from growing up in urban New York City. Um, 4 years there, and while there, I went to ROTC, so I was commissioned a second lieutenant upon graduation in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I was selected to go to navigator training because I always wanted to fly. I took a physical in my junior year, and they found a technical flaw with my vision, which didn't allow me to be a pilot, but they said I could be a navigator. I went on to become a navigator school for about a year. And then I was assigned to a Tactical Air Command C-130 squadron. And so I spent 5 years doing that. Went all over the world, including 15 months in Vietnam. And then I got out of the Air Force in 1970.
Oh, okay.
So, and quite often the officers in the Vietnamese Army travel with their families. And so it was he and his wife and his daughter. And oftentimes, when an officer got on board, or we had a few people, we'd let them sit up in a bench up in the cockpit. They'd sit up in the cockpit with us, and they were sitting up. The three of them were sitting up there with a bunk up there. They were sitting on the bunk, and I was at my navigator station, which was right next to this bunk, and I felt this hand sort of rubbing my arm, and it was the little girl. And I don't know if you know this, but Asian adults generally have very little hair on their bodies, and she was just fascinated by the hair on my arm, and she was kind of doing that. And when I sort of looked at her, she kind of pulled away like she was embarrassed to be caught, and I kind of winked at her, and she smiled, and I thought, in the midst of all the madness, that was kind of a sweet moment.
So what do you think the media's overall impact on the war was?
Well, I think in the very beginning, it reported the situation, and probably its tone was a little more World War II-ish, kind of patriotic, sort of behind the effort. I'm just guessing. And I think the overall, then as it dragged on, I think, and people couldn't sort of see an end, didn't see a way to sort of end this thing, as the American losses numbers started mounting, as like the My Lai massacre got reported, as the things got reported about people fabricating numbers in terms of death count to build a military career, and all that cynicism, and that, I think, that led to a little bit of the smell of death in the water, and people started finding all the things wrong with our presence there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think then, if you look at, I mean, I guess people point to the very famous um, evening when Walter Cronkite kind of came around and said he thought the war was lost. That changed people's perceptions about it. I think in general, transparency is a good thing. The hope for transparency is that it would keep people honest and keep people doing the right thing for fear of getting exposed. We all know that unfortunately that's not the case. I mean, look at this current situation with General Petraeus and those kinds of things. A situation. Well, was somebody overzealous there? No. Well, no. I mean, if you look at the facts, and you can't justify what apparently he did. I mean, there's no justification for it. Um, but it's the kind of thing that probably that exact situation has been going on probably ever since there's been armies. But the ability to track email and do those things led to it. So you know what I'm saying. I mean, I think transparency is a good thing. But I do think, in the interest of national security and in the interests of in general, I don't think that the American public has a right to or should be told everything about everything.
Mm.
I think there are certain things that we as a country are better served that are not known to everybody. I will end with this note of the thing I was going to tell you, how it changed my sort of general perspective. I think what it made me realize overall is kind of what's important. You know, I remember working after graduate school, working at a place, and there were some um, insecurities about the job and some things were changing and whatever. And someone said, you know, aren't you afraid of losing your job or getting fired? You know, and I said no. I said, you know, I used to have a job in the Air Force where if you screwed up, you got killed. Now, if you screw up, you just get fired, and I'm just going to get another job. So I don't see any pressure in that situation. So anyway, it's just given me, it's not a fatalistic kind of approach. It's just that realizing that some things are more important than what we may think is the most important thing in our lives today. There are other things that are sometimes have more consequence. So with that, I enjoyed the interview and thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Okay.